don't need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
My last question for today, let's toggle over here to Sarah's question. Sarah's writing me from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Sarah writes, Betsy, we have a cabin that has a lot of wood in the interior. Recently, we did a large addition, and the existing cabin and the addition are connected by a breezeway. There's currently a door that can be shut between the two spaces. Previously, it was an exterior door. But this door is typically going to be open and we're going to live like it's one large space. I would prefer to keep the new space feeling less rustic, less woodsy, but I'm afraid the spaces will look too disjointed if I stray too far. Currently, the new space has Sherwin Williams Alabaster White paint on the walls. We are planning on a white wood ceiling with mid-tone wood stained beams, stained wood windows, and white trim around the windows and doors. The floors are a charcoal polished concrete and will add rugs to soften the look. We also have one wall where the TV will go, and we plan on doing some brick or stone veneer. Any thoughts on this plan or how to unify the spaces while keeping the space a bit more modern? I've included an image of the living space and the existing cabin and a few images of this new space, along with a tentative layout for all the beams. I would love your advice. All right. Well, thanks so much for sending this in, Sarah. If you want to see Sarah's pictures, head over to affordableinteriordesign.com/links. There you can see the link to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and more. So you'll be able to see all the pictures and it will really illuminate the questions for you, I'm sure. Those of you just listening to the podcast, I'll do my best to illustrate it for you. So yes, the existing cabin has a lot of wood paneled sides, wood frame trim around the windows, and of course, wood ceilings. It's very cozy and the floor has kind of a gray stained wood. I'm not sure if it is planking or if it's like I'm not sure what it is because it doesn't necessarily look totally like wood, but unclear. But it is gray stained wood, that's for sure. In some kind of thing, be it tile or whatever. Then this new addition, you're right, is very different looking. While the floors have a similar gray tone, they're obviously concrete. There's not as much wood paneling. And I do think that just looking at the pictures you've sent, I understand why you're concerned that it may not feel cohesive. One space is just wood, and the other space doesn't really have much wood besides what I'm hearing with the framing around the windows. So I do share your concern that this might look a little disjointed, that it may not look like a natural flow. One thing I would definitely do is want to bring in more of that wood from the main house into this addition. I would consider, behind the TV wall, maybe doing a wall of the wood that matches the wood in the main house. So that way it really ties it together, but keeps it confined to just that one accent wall. I know, guys, I know. But every now and again, we can use an accent wall and keep it sophisticated. And in this case, use the accent wall to make the spaces more cohesive. So when we're thinking about making the spaces more cohesive, I'm talking about bringing in elements from one space and using them in a slightly different way in the other space. So we've talked about the wood. Now let's talk about the color palette. Looking at the existing cabin, there's not a lot of Roy G. Biv color to go off of. Certainly there's a lot of tans, browns, taupes, but I'm not seeing color. So I'd want to ask you about that 60-30-10, your room's color palette. And because the door is going to be open, because I'm going to be seeing into this addition, I would want to use similar colors, but maybe in a different way. So if we've got our 60-30-10 in the main house being 60% navy, 30% purple, I'm just making this up, and 10% red, then maybe what we want to do in this addition is do like 60% purple, 30% that blue, and keep the 10% red. Therefore, they're sharing a color palette, but they're using it in different doses, right? The addition has more purple, and the main house or the main cabin has more blue. So I feel like as I pass through one space to go to another, I feel like I'm in a very similar room, but it also feels different because we don't want to make this a copy of the other space. It's not going to share the same finishes. It's always going to look different. But the question is, how do we make it harmonious? How do we carry elements through without just copying the elements, right? We're not going to just install a wood floor in here. We're not going to panel all the walls like we see in that main cabin. We're just going to bring in elements that are used in the other space, but apply them differently. I think right then and there, it will create a lot of coziness. And then we want to look back at that main cabin. Does all the change need to take place in the addition? Or could we maybe paint the trim around the windows in the cabin the alabaster white? I can see way back in the corner, there is a bit of sheetrock that potentially leads to the kitchen. Could we make sure that that is the alabaster white? So we're carrying the same paint color, but just using it in a slightly different way. I think these will be really helpful ideas to play around with as you're deciding the finishes for your cabin and its addition. A big thank you to our amazing producer, Catherine Heller, to Aton and the MCR House Band, and to Affordable Interior Design, the sponsor of this podcast and the premier place to get an amazing look on a budget. Check out affordableinteriordesign.com. If you guys love the show, the very best way to support us is by spreading the word. Tell your friends or write us an awesome review on iTunes. So until next week, guys, thanks so much for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.